we are very happy to have you here, Tim. As I mentioned, Tim is an avid astronomer, and look at that, he's observed at Griffith Observatory before. So how did you get engaged with amateur astronomy?
Well, it was a number of years ago. I want to say about 25 years ago. I picked up a small, a little 4-inch mirror telescope, and I went out to the dark skies, which were a little bit closer back then because they didn't have as much development in the North Valley. So I'd go up as far as Templin Highway, and I'd park off the side of the freeway onto an out turn. And I take this little scope, and I was looking at the skies. I had star charts at the time, and was trying to find the objects that were on the charts. And I eventually was able to find quite a few of them with what I had, which is a smaller telescope. And also learning the constellations at that time, because at that time there were no computerized telescopes for consumers. They didn't have them.
You had to know how to point the thing?
You had to know where to point it. Was what you were looking at, what the constellations were, where the objects were in the constellations. And so I got used to the sky. Using that telescope, I got to memorize the sky. The majority of the time it was spring, summer, and fall. Winter time, there's not as much up. Obviously, we're not looking at quite as many stars. The Milky Way is not above us, so it's not as busy. And it's also a heck of a lot colder up there in the mountains. So I eventually got a larger telescope and then a larger one again to go out and see more and more of the objects that I wanted to take a look at, because the larger the telescope, the larger the mirror, the more you can see. And I did this every year, and eventually I joined LAAS and then went out to their platform at Fraser. So, and it's been my passion, and as a hobby, I really love it. I've always loved it, and I wanted to hands-on pursue it at that time, so I did.
So that first telescope, what inspired you to do that?
Well, because at the time, I mean, I was always into to space science, planetary science, and astronomy, and to be able to, I think a friend of mine mentioned to me, you could get a small, mirror telescope and actually go out and do that, and I thought, well, I'm going to try that. And I sure did. I was by myself out there. I'd just go alone and do it. There was nobody with me. I would just go out there, park it, and spend 2 or 3 hours doing that whenever I had a chance to. And it was absolutely fascinating to see the clusters and the groups of stars and some of the galaxies and other things that were on the chart, and actually see them with the naked eye was fascinating. And I was hooked at that point.
How many people in the audience have a telescope? So kind of a small number. Yeah, I didn't get one. I got one on my 40th birthday. Was my first telescope, so I was already kind of in the astronomy thing.
There you go.
Before I actually looked through a telescope, but
The Hubble. Yeah.
Hubble was my first, right? Actually, there's some truth. Actually, for me, there's some truth.
That's actually some truth. Yeah.
I done grad school. Anyway, good point.
Yeah. Hubble's a little bit bigger than what I had. Much smaller than that. Yeah.
So have you done any photography, like the pictures we saw of Saturn? And
the only photography I did was back in the day. I had a Schmidt-Cassegrain, not unlike this one here, that I just piggybacked a 35mm camera on with a 200mm lens, and I shot the constellation Cygnus. The North American nebula is right around there, and it's a big, huge, wide, diffuse nebula. It's reddish in color. You cannot see it with the naked eye, but at the time, the camera lens was wide enough that I didn't have to have a perfect polar alignment to hold that thing in steady so it wouldn't blur. So I was able to ride a 10-minute, 15-minute exposure and still get the thing in there. So I took a couple of those at the time. And of course, now there's CCD cameras and there's other ways of doing it, so it's very different now. And also the computerized telescopes will keep things stable in the frame so you can take a longer exposure. And that was with film back in the day when I used to walk uphill both ways to school. Yeah, that was back in the day. We had film. We had to actually go get it developed and processed. How about them apples? And, so now it's all electronic, and it's much different and much easier. So, but not right now. Most of the stuff I do now is just viewing. I love viewing. And the main thing I like, for an example, I was up here with a refractor, 3.5-inch, 4-inch refractor at the time when Shoemaker-Levy 9 ran into Jupiter. And we were able to see the black marks that were left behind on the planet's surface. And that's not with a big telescope. But I was up here on the lawn at Griffith when that happened. With that night, we were watching it, and it was absolutely amazing. The comet Hyakutake, unbelievable. Hale-Bopp, unbelievable. That the image that we had from those comets in the dark skies, they were so bright that they were stunning to look at. And those are the main things that one of the main reasons I like having access to these scopes, and I wait for those events, those astronomical events. I'm waiting for an asteroid collision on the moon. I really want to see that. That's what I'm waiting for. So it doesn't have to be a big one, just something that goes splat and then I can watch it. So I would love to see that. I'd love to see, another, cometary collision on Jupiter if we could get one. And also the passing comets that are coming and going. We haven't had some really good, spectacular ones in a while, so I'm waiting for another big one to come by and to be able to observe them over a couple days' time.
So what is it about looking through a telescope and seeing with your own eyes that appeals to you? Is it the challenge of, sort of the technology and finding it? Is it a more emotional or spiritual aspect? Or, is it just, a fun way to spend time? Or what's the appeal?
It's fascinating to me to be able to look at, say, for example, two galaxies in the same field of view, knowing how far away they are, their sizes, and how many stars they're made up of, to be able to see that with the naked eye, or a nebula from a star that's exploded, thousands of years ago, and imagining what it might look like now compared to what I see in the eyepiece, it's because the light has taken that long to reach us, and you're looking back in time at all of these objects. So you're actually, in a way, there is some time travel involved. You're looking back in time at what they looked like at that point. And imagining, being close to them, seeing them with the naked eye, there's something magical about that. And in some cases, they're just outright spectacular. I mean, if you're looking at Saturn or looking at Jupiter, you're looking at a globular cluster, which is, hundreds of thousands of stars just clumped together. And if you have a really good viewing night, you've got a good sized telescope and a decent eyepiece, just the right size eyepiece, you can look at that and you can almost dive into the center of it. So the stars they're very dense at the beginning and they spread out and fan out at the end, and it fills the entire eyepiece. I mean, it's like looking at diamonds on a black surface. It's like looking at jewels. It's beautiful. And just that alone is one of the main reasons. But there's also, like I said, the fact that when you're looking at these objects and how many of them there are out there, and what the meaning is behind those, the fact that you have your own galaxy that you live in, and these are other galaxies where there are, 10 times more stars than we have in ours, and the potential for intelligent life on these planets that might be there. So and you're wondering if there might be someone out there looking back at you and your own at a telescope that's not unlike yours. So that could be amazing.
Now, I ask you this not from an analytical point of view, but just from a personal point of view. Do you think there are others out there?
I'd like to go along with the Drake equation possibility, which, just given all of the elements that are in the universe are the same ones that make up all of us and this planet and everything on it. And those elements are everywhere in the universe. So if that's the case, then, if you'll excuse the word logically, there should be a mix of those elements on other worlds that turned out to produce some form of life. Now, whether or not it's intelligent, whether or not they've evolved beyond where we are, or whether or not at the same pace we are, that all remains to be seen. I don't know exactly what those odds might be, because you need, I think, as evolution, the process, you need cataclysm, you need mass extinctions in order to generate these loops of evolution, which might garner you the life. The dinosaurs were around for 150, 200 million years. They never evolved to the point where they could have an astronomy session like this. And we've only been around as mammals for 5 million years, as intelligent mammals, so 5 million years, because there was an extinction event. And we had several over the course of the Earth's history, and only now do we have the opportunity to develop intelligent life. So to me, it seems like you have to have those evolutionary gaps in order for life to develop very quickly and radically. So who knows if on those other planets, if you've got amoebas or plankton or something else swimming around and that's it, and that all those niches are filled and then doesn't go anywhere from there, or if there's no comets or asteroids in their solar system, which I would guess there would be, and the planet or gamma ray bursts, as it were, those planets, if there's no mass extinction, will evolution carry those life forms to the point where they reach intelligent life, and how long would that take? So I think, but by sheer odds, what is it, there are more stars out there than there are grains of sand on every beach on planet Earth. I mean, you wrap your head around that number, man, that's got to be something going on.
Now, your love then for astronomy has grown not only just from looking through telescopes, but you clearly keep up with astronomy information, what's going on in research. You mentioned just now, of course, life beyond Earth. Are there other areas of astronomy that you have a particular interest in, you think is, where the excitement is happening?
I think my favorites, one of the top things I'm interested in is planetary astronomy, planetary science, because we're very much on the verge of being able to look at these planets and to be able to determine whether there might be intelligent life on them by virtue of what's detected in the atmospheres. What's produced. If we see the same kind of signature that we have on Earth, then we would be able to indicate that that's possibly a planet where life might exist. That to me is amazing, to be able to see them around other stars and then analyze their atmospheres at that point in time and get as much information as we can. The other thing about astronomy is that we are trying to peer beyond 13.5 or 13.4 billion years ago into the 14 billion year mark, as far back as we can possibly go to see what the early universe looked like. I mean, we're at some point now, but they want to go even farther. So they're developing another scope that can do that as we speak. Also, the black hole at the center of our galaxy, they're fixing to eyeball that real carefully and to actually see it. So that stuff is amazing. It is all absolutely amazing.
So I was going to say, if you seem to have a great interest in life beyond Earth for an Earthling.
Yes, well, the fact of the matter is I have traveled in other parts of the galaxy.
In fact,
I've met all these aliens, and so I know they're out there.
And you did manage to escape the black hole in the center of the galaxy.
Yes,
so,
we did.
I'm very impressed. So obviously I'm referring to one of the ways in which our audience knows you quite well, and that is your role as officer, commander, Tuvok on Voyager. Did playing that role come naturally after the astronomy, or do you think playing that role fed more into the astronomy, or are they completely, one's a job and the other's a passion, or how did they
It was
relate?
completely coincidental, because I was studying astronomy and as a hobby and was interested in it for a long time before getting on that show. It was purely coincidental. I could have easily ended up on Baywatch. That would have been a different story. But ultimately, the coincidence in being able to play this character who is traveling around the galaxy and discovering life forms and species all every week, there's no way I could have planned that. I mean, we can't yet look ahead of us and tell what's going to happen. Boy, the day that happens, that'll be something else. But we can always look back. And I look back at it and look at it, and I sit there and go, that's absolutely remarkable that actually happened the way it did. I cannot explain to you how, the circumstances were I worked on Roots, the third part of Roots, The Gift. This is in the 1980s when we filmed in Georgia. And on that one day one of the days I was shooting, I was there for a week, but one of the days I was shooting, the other actors I was working with were Kate Mulgrew, Avery Brooks, and LeVar Burton. And I ended up working with all of them on that show. Again, could not have seen that coming. I can only look back and go, wow, that was amazing. It's purely coincidental in that. That's one thing about, what is it, the elements of the universe. It's random, and it's the same thing. It is completely random. We don't know, what that's going to be like next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now. Who knows? So you can only look back and go, wow, that's a heck of a trip.
Now, are there aspects of Tuvok and his backstory that, perhaps maybe things we don't know because it didn't really come out so much, that you find particularly fascinating in that character? I mean, are you drawn to the character in addition to having played him? Do you find interesting links to him?
Well, there are friends of mine who actually say that that was not a stretch to play that role. You ain't kidding anybody. You're a lot like him. Yeah, that's true. I have some elements about, there's elements about the character that are very similar to my personality as well. I wish I had his patience on the 405 freeway every once in a while.
Or phasers.
Or phasers. Or a teleporter.
Yeah.
Transporter. Let's do this.
Right.
There's some things about the character that I could relate to, quite frankly. I mean, my philosophy is I like it, a rock with a light switch. That's how complicated I like things. I don't want things complicated. Rock and a light switch. That's how I like it to work. I like things that make sense. I do like things that are logical. I do like things that are practical and functional. I mean, we've all been there. If it's a web page that doesn't work or something else that doesn't make any sense, that drives me bananas. Because why doesn't it make sense? How could anybody design something that doesn't make any sense? So in that sense, I very, very, very much identify with Tuvok's character, And again, I mean, playing that role, here I am, an actor who studies for 20 years to show a range of emotions, and I end up playing this guy for 7 years with none. Again, you can't look forward, you can look what the heck happened here?
So you've mentioned to me before that you are fascinated by where technology may take us in the future. And of course, I was just realizing in a talk I gave a couple of weeks ago, and I'll mention this a little later, that we have total eclipses calculated to such perfection for the next, all the way out 3,000 years into the future. So we know every solar eclipse that James T. Kirk would see or Tuvok would see back on Earth, and then another 700 years beyond that. So we think Star Trek's in the future. We actually have our ephemeris for solar eclipses.
Make your plans now.
Right. To the 24th century. And anyway, do you have any both predictions, or I shouldn't say speculations, and or desires about what you'd really like to see that future look like out that far?
I'll tell you, the one thing that would be, and I mentioned it just briefly earlier, that would be incredible is to be able to do some form of time travel. And we do it on our show. We did it on our show many times, and dimensionally, Mirror Universe. That to be able to travel through time would be unbelievable. To be able to do that.
Where would you go? Where in time?
I would go to the past. I would go to witness the ancient civilizations, to watch Egypt and to see how they built the pyramids exactly. Might even go back as far as the dinosaurs, just to see how they lived, and I'm sure I'd have some company. But I would love to see that as terms of going back. As far as going to the future, I would be more interested in the past. I would be more interested in finding out and seeing for yourself what actually transpired and happened. Our modern civilization is going to be the most recorded civilization that there is, in theory, right? Because if they're put on a CD, they may not be around much longer because they're going to be gone. I mean, we're still reading cuneiform tablets. They've lasted for 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years, and our CDs are going to be gone here in a minute. So I don't even know what our storage capacity is going to be like 20 years from now, 100 years. But it would be fascinating to be able to break that barrier, and also to travel to the next stars and planets. I would love to see, us being able to colonize worlds outside of Earth, and I think that's going to be it's inevitably our destiny. And at some point, we will also defeat mortality. Mortality is going to become a thing of the past.
Is that a good thing?
It's relative, to use Einstein's word. It's relative, because somebody from 700 years ago, if they dropped into Times Square, they'd wonder if it was a good thing or not. I'm thinking they probably wouldn't think it was a good thing. They wouldn't think anything about our society was a good thing, because they would not be, because they're in the wrong time. We're here now, so it's relative, right? Your young people growing up, only know what the technology is today. They don't know what the technology was when I was going to school. See, We only had telephones attached to the wall. You see, so we have a perspective on the past, but those who are growing up aren't going to know the difference. You want to know something else? Eventually, if it's my daughter's child, at least, yeah, it probably will be her. My job as an actor is going to go away. There won't be any more actors. Actors will be generated by computers, and so will the audio. You won't see them anymore. Oh, you've already witnessed it. You've already seen it. Oh, yes, you have. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Did you see? Did you see Kurt Russell? Mm-hmm. Yeah. They've gotten real good at that. The first time they tried it was on Tron. Kind of shaky, but on that one, they got it right. And that's only going to get better and better. And eventually, you will not need us. The only difference is we won't be able to appear on the red carpet. Well, we might be able to because they can project a 3D image. So that's going to change. Not going to be happy, but I'm not going to be worried because I won't be around. Ultimately, that's going to be something that occurs as well. Our technology will surpass our mortality. Our diseases will be gone. There won't be those. They will look back at us and wonder, oh my God, they had operations on people, you know? The same way we look back and wonder, oh my God, they use leeches? You know, I mean, all of that is inevitable. It will change not only the way we live, but the way we relate to each other as well. Can't imagine, right? Because we sit in one room right now and text each other, and the other person's sitting right there. What's it going to be 10 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years from now? What is that going to be like? Unrecognizable. And the speed at which it will happen will be like this. And there's no ceiling. What I notice is there's no ceiling. Because when I was growing up, there was always a ceiling. It was a phone. Now, the shape of the phone may change, but it was always plugged into the wall. There's a cord in the wall, a cord to the phone. You can't go, you know, that's it. And that was it. It was a television. Black and white, color. That's it. But it was around for a very long time, right? Didn't change. Nothing changed that matter. Now, it's 10 minutes, man. Whatever it is, it's only going to last 10 minutes. It may not even get off the ground before something else takes over. The record's gone, the CD's in. CD's gone, this is about the flash drive, the storage, what's it going to be next? A gel, paste? What are you going to store on? From that, it's going to be something else. There's no ceiling. It just keeps going, and there's no, you know what I'm saying? There's no plateau. So it's just going to keep racing and racing and racing. So that's the part that's a little, to me, is a little I worry about to some degree, is where's that going to stop, man? Where's that going to go? But eventually, if we're going to colonize other planets and worlds, we'll have to, our physical makeup will have to change. And the first thing will happen is that we'll become more and more machine-like. We will be more integrated into machines. That's the only way you could survive, you know, those kinds of trips, the different atmospheres on different worlds and things like that, the forces of traveling through warping time and space. How in the heck are we going to do that? You can't do that in a corporeal body. It's not going to happen. So we will have to change. We will have to evolve. And as we do, that is not going to stop. As long as we don't blow ourselves up. That's not going to stop. Or we don't get another gamma ray burst or, you know, a mass extinction event. That's the only thing that could slow us down a little bit.
Well, I want to, excuse me, to speak a little bit about some of your upcoming projects, but before I close with that, I'd love to open it up to the audience. If you have any questions for Tim, we have a few minutes.
Leonard Nimoy, have you ever met him?
I worked with Leonard Nimoy while I was in college. He came to my school and he did a play with us called Caligula at the time. This is the 1970s. And so I actually worked with him back in the day, and I ended up playing a role based on his character, you know, in the present day. So you can't, it's completely coincidental, and it's something you could not have planned for. But yes, I have met him several times, yes. I worked with him then, and I've only briefly talked to him here and there since that time. Wonderful man. He was a wonderful man. Yes.
I have a question. I was playing a video game called The Elder Scrolls Online. And I was wondering, did you do a voice in that, or do you remember?
Yeah, I did.
I was playing it last night. I'm like, this guy sounds so familiar.
Yeah, I've done. I was doing them today. I was doing another video game today. I can't release the name because it's undercover, but. I did Fallout 4, I did Dragon Age, Ultimate Alliance, there's a whole bunch of them I've done, quite a few actually. And yes, I combed the desert in Spaceballs. Couldn't have seen that one coming.
Any other questions?
I've got one.
Yes.
What's the next piece of equipment you're looking to buy for telescope-wise?
I think if I get another piece of equipment, I'd like to get a larger Dobsonian mirror as an A plan, and a B plan is I might get a computerized scope of some type. I'm not sure what size that'll be, just so I can, spot around some things a little quicker and easier out in the field. I generally don't like computers because I like to be able to, just like the simplicity of the manual stuff, and I know it's going to work when I get out there, so I don't really need it. So what I'll probably end up doing is getting a larger mirror, as long as I can carry it, in my car. So that would be the only thing I'm looking at.
You need to get Northrop Grumman to get you one that will unfold like that.
Just like,
It'll make
just,
the light honeycomb.
just like that.
Yeah.
Again, the technology. Let's do this, folks.
Right. One more question from the audience? Yes.
Yes.
Has your role as playing Tuvok in Star Trek Voyager and your interest in astronomy made you think you've lived in the wrong time? Say maybe like you would have liked to live in the future or something?
Well, again, that's a relative question, because if I was in the future, I would be wondering what the next future would be. So at the time it would seem normal. It wouldn't seem normal. I like the fact that what would be better is if I could live now and then peer into the future and see what the future was like, because then it would be impressive to me. So I like the age of discovery that we're in now. I like the fact that I'm living during the computer age and the technology that's coming out, and the individuals who are using that technology and putting that technology to use are uncovering these secrets and these things in space and in physics. This is the time, I think, a very good time to be living. Again, if I was living at the time, in the future, it would be relative, right? I'd be going, God, what's it like 1,000 years from now?
I know.
It would always be that leapfrog.
Well, I'd like to turn to the immediate future because I know you have a couple projects coming up that you might want to share a little bit about with the group. The first one we have a little information about is The Fifth Passenger.
Fifth Passenger.
What's that all about?
Fifth Passenger is a science fiction film. It's a story about basically a lifeboat in space. A large transport has exploded, and these people have just crammed onto a lifeboat out in space as a way to get around it, 2 or 3 of these things, and this one is off course. So it's away from all of the other ships and the potential. Earth has, at its time, in the beginning of the story, Earth is a wasteland. It's been destroyed, and these people have escaped Earth. And in this ship that's getting away, the ship runs into trouble, and it explodes. They have to get off of that. So it's a lifeboat in space story. And I play one of the people on board that lifeboat who's not necessarily very nice. There's 2 different classes of society in the story, which are very juxtaposed to each other, and which makes it interesting. So I think it's
We do, yes.
Scott Baker.
All right.
This is Lieutenant Eve Miller. I only have 14 hours of air rest. I may be the sole survivor from UGS 98.
How did you get on that pod? That was a priority craft for essential personnel.
These pods were designed to sustain 4 lives. We have a 5th passenger.
Look, I don't see anything.
Stay back! All of you. That man is not coming inside.
I'm not in here alone.
Kind of creepy.
Creepy stuff going on.
Very creepy. Not the optimistic, Star Trek vision.
Not
there.
a happy story. Very interesting.
And when will we be able to find it?
Hopefully by the end of this year, they will have a distribution deal on this. It's completed now. They're just looking to see what kind of package is going to be for releasing. And they've got some interest from several people already, so
Great.
it's a good thing.
Good. And the other project is Renegade.
Renegades, yes. We worked on that initially as a film based on Star Trek and the characters of Star Trek. It was an independent project put together by Sky Conway, and he called me to direct it out of the blue. Asked if I wanted to work on it. I said, yeah, sure, why not? And I like shooting that stuff as well. Directorially, it's such a challenge. And it's a lot of fun, because of course it's science fiction. So, yes.
All right, here we go.
Beyond this place of wrath and tears, looms but the horror of the shade.
I'll lead them away. You stay here.
Don't leave me!
I have to, or they'll get you too.
There may be evidence that she is still alive.
Tell me.
Do this mission, and I will.
I'm worried about you, Poppy. You should have retired years ago.
I'm only 143. With all the new medical advances, I'll be around when you become captain.
The Federation made a grave mistake in interfering. We will not be stopped by you. We will not be stopped by anyone.
The Council refuses to act. He is destroying planets, and yet they do nothing.
We can't trust anyone.
Our salvation may rest with rogues and outcasts.
Alexa, sing. You're supposed to be serving out a life sentence in an Orion prison.
A recognized leader of a whole world, and we just stroll in and assassinate him.
Starfleet's prime directive won't let them interfere, so they have to find someone else.
Spirit without discipline can have deadly consequences.
This is his stronghold. It's ultra-fortified.
That won't bother me.
Be careful. One tragedy is enough.
Make no mistake. You will be hunted.
That's the way we like it.
I will bring the Federation to their knees.
We could be in trouble.
We're already in trouble.
Let's give them hell. Return fire.
Be careful, Pavel. This could get out of hand very easily.
A lot of very talented people behind that.
A lot. And when will we be able to see that?
That is streaming online, as a matter of fact,
already?
right now. StarTrekRenegades.com, I think, is still the site that it's on, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's that one, and there's a part 2 that's also on there as well. So it's fun.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, we are out of time for our program, and so grateful that you came to join us.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.